tonight. Again, if you could just project your voice to make sure everyone hears you. If we could just begin, let's see, we'll begin to my far left at the end. If you could give us an introduction by telling us who you are and what organization you're representing, and then just a little bit about 5 minutes about what the critical need is as it relates to immigration in our society, and especially in New Orleans. At the end, sir, please.
Please ask me to speak up if you need me to. My name, again, is Sean Anglem. I'm the pastor at First Grace. And I'm going to stand just because it's easier for me to project. I think I would begin by saying on Tuesday and Thursday night, there are language classes for people to learn English. And there's in any semester, there's probably 50 to 100 Spanish speakers learning English at First Grace. And then that's Tuesday and Thursday. And on Wednesday night, Congresso meets there, which you'll hear more about, but they are basically a gathering of mostly undocumented folks who are changing the systems in the city and confronting those systems in very bold, organized ways. And they meet in our sanctuary. And also in our church, we have a legal clinic that we started called Project Ishmael. And probably the most interesting thing about all that is that First Grace, if you don't know, is the post-Katrina merger of a remnant of a black church, historical black church, and a historical white church. I've never gotten so much applause in my life, so please keep it coming. So that's, how did that happen? I think, First Grace happened because the two congregations that I was pastoring, I came after the storm and was working with a lot of churches, but I started working with these two, Grace and First. There were about 25 members of Grace, which is historical black church, and First, historical white church, had about 17 very elderly folks, huge facility. And eventually, after several months, this was the question I asked them. It was not about their survival. The question was, do you think we can do more for our city as one body of Christ? More than we can ever do as two bodies of Christ, one long mile apart. And that's a very dangerous question because we kind of know the answer to that, but as we also know, there's really no good reason for black people to trust white people. And so, you sort of come at it with this knowledge of history, but you also come at it with your faith. And if you ask faithful people that question, they can give themselves to it in faith. And consequently, what's happened is something much bigger than us always seems to be happening at First Grace. It's just always bigger than that event, but it only happens because people said yes to that event. Something has been unleashed in our church. And we've grown quite a bit and all that, but we had a big empty building. And looking back, I can say part of our spiritual discipline was that we said yes. We're a big building. People come to us all the time and ask us, can we have paranoid schizophrenic adults sit in your front lobby on Tuesday mornings and give them shots? And we said yes. The city came to us, said we have a homeless problem. Would you would you do something? And we, through the leadership of Angela and the church, created Hagar's House, a residence for homeless women and children, which is a thriving, beautiful home today. And things like this just keep happening to us. Latinos started showing up, even though we were, so-called black church, white church. And then the conference sent Spanish pastors, missionaries, to be housed at First Grace. And things just keep opening up to us. After about 2 or 3 years of running go to law school at night, get a law degree, and open up a legal clinic for immigrant children. And so that's what she did. And now we have this house, and we have this beautiful legal clinic. And I don't want to steal too much of her thunder, but we haven't lost one case. That's not true. We lost one case, but it wasn't a case for an immigrant child. So it doesn't mean we've won all of our cases. It means we're winning, and it means we're giving people time. So I like to think for us, one of our spiritual disciplines is that we say yes. And, you know, there's a fear that often comes and a nervousness, and then it's amazing what the Holy Spirit does in that situation. If you can remain open and faithful. And I think, I'll just say one more thing. We also opened our church to Jose Torres, who lived in sanctuary there for about 10 months. But if you can find ways to say yes in your church, I think remarkable things happen. And for us, that has been, in many ways, our relationship with the immigrant community. And the final thing I'll say is, when you live with the marginalized, and the President of the United States threatens their very existence, then they look at you, and they want to know, do you have anything to say about that? Do you have something, a word of assurance that my community, when I look at you, do I see this, or do I see some clarity about who you are? And that has been the gift that the immigrant community has given to us, which is to be people of faith. And it's made me a better pastor and a better person. And I really appreciate what the pastor said. It's not made me perfect, but it's made me imperfectly faithful. And so I'm very grateful to be with you tonight. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Pastor. Next, please.
all of you, we cried and cried when we saw families separated at the border of the United States at the instigation of an unjust government. And so a group of older women, because we're really the power, in the world. And
out there, meeting the buses?
I don't know.
Do you see others that are out there?
St. Louis, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
There might be.
Some of the people are Episcopalians or Unitarians,
But there aren't a lot that are meeting these buses for.
we're doing this all, we're organizing. I mean, you get a 501
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
you become a nonprofit.
Right.
And so,
Okay.
we are just, since, August 19th, when we came up with this idea, we passed out 10,000 care kits before, Christmas.
Wow.
And since then, we've doubled it.
What we want you to know as Justice of Beyond is that we want to organize with you. We want to be on those front lines with you, fighting for people that have been marginalized and pushed aside, and whatever we can do. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And this is going around out there already? Okay. So we will get somebody to pass those around. All right, our last panelist here, sir, we've got about 3 more minutes that you're left with, before we can get the questions, and we know that, Pastor Sean and Pastor Angela have to leave, so we're gonna get the questions this one. Tell us who you are, and tell everybody out there.
My name is Frank Allen. I'm glad that we have 3 minutes to allow me public.
Real loud, please.
So what is it, what do you need? I think Pastor Sean said you have to, if you want to say yes to have the kind of justice around immigration, then you have to find your voice in whatever way you can. The Grammys is only one. It's very important. I mean, and it's probably so much fun and so easy. But there is just so much happening in our city that is pushing back on the, it's crazy. Trump tweets or he does an executive order and then it paves the way for policy, right? And this is the kind of stuff, the policy is the kind of stuff that we have to push on. And there's a lot of organizations that are doing that. I'd like to highlight one of them. We all know that thanks to criminal justice reform that the state's population of prisoners has dropped. But now ICE, because it is detaining more people, are looking for places to put the detainees. And here in Louisiana, we find that we all know that prison is a business. It's a way of making money. So there are small parishes or Louisiana sheriffs that have contracted with ICE to house detainees in local prisons. Okay? But as a result of this, there are groups that are saying, okay, this is going to happen. We'll push back on it, but we will also witness what is happening in these prisons. So there's a group of people that are going on a regular basis to visit detainees in the prison and to witness what's happening to them in the prison. So just find something that helps you say, no, this can't happen, and yes, I want to find something to stop.
Thank you. I want to remind our audience that we are taking questions by way of index cards. There are 2 buckets, one at my left and one at my right. If you want to ask a question, please fill out one of those index cards and we will get that up here. To start off, I just have a question about when we think of immigration and justice in this city, what are some of the lies that we are being led to believe about our immigrants that are coming in? Or another way to put it is, what is being really hidden from us as people that get up every day, go to work, are only being given certain information on the news? What really would we be surprised to know, and what are the lies that we are being fed by our media that is simply not true, that we have to be educated about the truth. And so if you can just pull back the veil for us
Those
a little
people
bit.
don't have jobs. Those people are draining the public resources. Those people are here illegally. Those people don't belong here with us. That's a start of what you're doing.
Anyone else?
Well, I know I'm not a member of the panel, but I know I'm not a member of the panel, but as a physician, I have offered my services to most of the indigent and what we say as a lesser served community. And almost every single Honduran, Venezuelan, I'm trying to think of Guatemalan person that I meet that comes to my office because I offer my services for cash if they need it and don't go into trying to figure out where you are from, what you're doing here. I'm just going to take care of you. Almost every single person that I've taken care of is actually working.
Yes.
He or she is doing some kind of job, and he or she comes to me and can pay for his or her services. And not one of those individuals who's come to me, and I thought perhaps he or she was undocumented or they were a non-English speaker, not one of them has ever asked me for a free share.
Okay.
They've always been willing to pay for their care, and I always offer it to them at a discounted amount. And as far as I can tell, they were all law-abiding people who were trying to simply find a better place for themselves at that time.
All right. Doctor, thank you for that, because I think that's one of those lies that we're being told, that there's an infestation that is parasitic and that is draining resources from other people, and that's certainly not true.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yes. Supervisor, will respond to that question about myths or lies. Pastor? Pastor Jones? Did you have anything? I saw you flinch.
Next question.
All right. You got one right here.
I'll respond to that.
Okay.
I'll respond to it.
Who is that?
Please. So, there's also another myth, and that is that there's also another myth, and that is that there's some kind of like equal way that, asylum seekers are treated, immigration is treated, but the reality is that the variance between one group that's coming here versus another group that's coming here is amazing. Like, so I'll give you a personal story for me, so that way to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. So my parents are from Cuba, and they came over here in 1959 under the umbrella of what I would call the gold standard of asylum policy. So the asylum policy under which they fell under was so generous and so geared to help them be successful in this country that indeed they were very successful. They got grants to go to college, the whole 9 yards. So I've always said, and I've advocated within Latino communities in particular, but outside in policy circles, that we have examples of policies that are geared to help asylum seekers thrive in our nation. I am one. I'm a product of it. Why not do it with every group? Now, that's when we start coming into the race and the color and the racism that we have to fight for real racial and social justice. Because the reality is that there is no reason why our policies for asylum seekers should not all look like the policies that allow for me to flourish in this country. They should all be like that. And I think that the Americans that will be produced through that umbrella of equal and just policies for asylum seekers would produce a much stronger and healthier nation.
Thank you.
All right, the first one is for Frank. It says, tell us more about what is going on in New Orleans to support immigrants.
What's going on? Well, there really is a lot. There really is a lot. I mean, we've mentioned a number of them already. Progreso, the Congress of the Labor. They're one of the first organizations that started organizing their labor.
www.nolabranding.org. And it's on this sheet, on this
Yes,
pamphlet.
it's on,
Well, we've got
Facebook.
friends on the back of this, if you want to wait to donate purchases from Amazon, we get people that get the Amazon shipping to their home. You can go to nolabrands@gmail and Vaughn
within our Justice and Beyond organization. And part of that is understanding the systems that are set in place that don't allow, especially people of color, to aspire and to move forward, but keeps them, there's that design system that keeps them from advancing. What do you think are products of racism that are set in place to keep immigrants from prospering and moving forward?
Well, I was just going to say, one example, there's a lot of copycat laws to a law that came out in Arizona called SB 1070, which was dubbed the Show Me Your Papers law. And that really was the law that said, like, if you're driving while brown, you may or may not be illegal. Likely you are illegal. So it gave police in Arizona every right to stop people and set up checkpoints and work in collaboration with ICE. Many of you may have heard of Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who did this, and he was praised of having these tent cities as a punishment for these illegal migrants. And these copycat laws, I call them copycat laws because we have laws similar to them in places like Georgia, and in fact in other parishes outside of New Orleans, places like Texas as well. And when we talk about the border, we don't talk about the border between Canada and the United States. We think of in our imagination the border with Mexico. We don't talk about undocumented Irish folk that are here in the United States who overstay their visa. And so to say that, migration is not linked or like stained with racism is an absolute fallacy, because this country has exported that. We'll have to remember also that our first immigration law is the Chinese Exclusion Act. And the list goes on. And so understanding the links between racism and immigration law, I think, helps us to have a clearer view of the other work, as you mentioned, of dismantling white supremacy and all of that, and building black and brown unity in this as well.
Thank you. And I must say, we are happy to have you as a panelist. You are a oneness, and we're grateful. So thank you for your voice.
Okay, next. In the 1980s, I went with a group to be present at deportation hearings in Oakdale, Louisiana. Is that imprisonment or using for asylum seekers in Oakdale, Louisiana? Is one of them.
LaSalle,
What were we going to say?
Jenna, LaSalle, and I think there's one in Prairie View. So there's three ICE detention centers. When I spoke about the housing of detainees in local prisons, that is separate. They're not official ICE detention centers. But in the city of Louisiana, there are three official ICE detention centers, and they're supposed to be able to house a total of like 2,600 detainees, but we all know that
issues. I work really hard with Latino communities across the state, and this is a key issue. So a lot of the questions about, what are the numbers of various detention centers, what currently exists, the current state, we don't have a lot of centralized information on that, but we are building capacity to do that. So we have started a statewide Latino work group, and I'm chairing that. I recently was appointed to the governor's Latino Commission, and so we are reconvening a Latino Commission under the power of the governor to assess the current state of affairs of Latinos in the state of Louisiana. And a lot of the questions that you're asking, we don't have a lot of the answers right now. But we're working formally, strategically, we are working towards collecting the data, coordinating the various government agencies that have information on our Latino residents throughout the state. And we are trying to put that together in a fashion to where our communities can address their own needs armed with information from our government, who we pay for our taxes. So that's what we are trying to do right now. So a lot of this information that we're asking, we're trying to work towards. So I'd like to offer up. I'll have my email, and I'm in the email tree. If you have any requests or any key groups that have needs, identifiable needs, please share them with me, and then we can include them in what we're doing. And this is going to be a process that's going to happen for over the next 8 to 10 months.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Before we go to our next question, just to note, we do take donations for our food. We're going to do this church style. We need to pass the plate one more time because we have received $80. We usually try to get between 90 to 100. That's very helpful. So if you're able to chip in there, that would be very much appreciated. If not, we understand. Next question, please.
Yes. Our local LGBTQ organizations helping Amorti Scholar. Yeah. Where is you ready? Okay, come on. All right.
Okay. What was the question?
Our local LGBTQ organizations helping them.
On the other one, yeah. On the non-immigrant LGBTQ society, your organization. How's that?
Bueno, la verdad es que seguimos recibiendo ayuda al principio, pero ahora no estamos recibiendo ayuda de nadie, de ninguna organización LGBTQ de las que se encuentran aquí en Colombia. Entonces, como vuelvo y repito, estamos saliendo adelante por ¿cómo podría decirlo? Por la comunidad, personas que no pertenecen a ninguna organización, entonces de ellos estamos recibiendo mucha ayuda, pero sí de organizaciones no estamos recibiendo ningún apoyo de ninguna manera.
So the truth is, we're getting by with the support of LGBTQ organizations, but since then, we haven't been receiving from any organization. As far as the LGBTQ community in New Orleans is concerned, and I repeat, right now, we've been getting by with, how should I say this, with queer folk who are coming as individuals, who are not part of any organization, who have been helping us and supporting us. And so we haven't been receiving any support from organizations.
Thank you.
¿Qué tipo de ayuda necesita?
What kind
What
of
kind of
support
support do you need?
Bueno, la verdad estamos buscando la manera de cómo llegar a o voy a decir así, a una organización que nos apoye con fondos
just as important is who you're in a relationship with. And if everybody you're in a relationship with is like you, or looks like you, then you tend to, your image of community, your image of God, your image of what's possible is very small. And so if you can find a way to seek out, and I'm not saying you're not doing this, deeper relationships with people who aren't like you, all kinds of things happen. All kinds of things happen. And that's been sort of the way of our church.
Let's go with Frank next, please.
Bueno,
Oh, go ahead.
es mi primera vez estando en una reunión como panelista y he disfrutado bastante de compartir con cada uno de ustedes, saber de nuestra historia, del trabajo que cada persona está haciendo por la comunidad migrante. Estoy muy agradecido con saber de eso.
on the boundaries of whatever communities we might have. I'm continuously amazed because I hadn't known much about the Hispanic community, I confess. Then I married one, and, you know, that expands your boundaries.
You have to everybody divorce your spouse.
Or better for worse. Thank you, thank you. Next.
Okay, this question, this is for Mr. Frank. What is the group that is visiting the immigrants in prisons?
I'd have to get back to you because there was an email that I received, and I think you know who it is. Maria Luisa. They were loosely a member of the Interfaith Coalition, but I really, you know, it's, tell you what, I could probably look it up on my iPhone and tell it. But I'll tell you what, I will send it to you, and you can send it out to them.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, appreciate it. Last one?
That's a wonderful initiative. That is, I want to say this.
Real loud, please. I know it's hard not to look it up. but, yeah.
Relative to the prisons, or the jails, the detention centers, they fill up. The people there are allowed a visit from a lawyer. They're often allowed a phone call. But you can only ascertain, if you're unaffiliated, you can only ascertain whether they're there or not. There's no other rights that people have. And they pull up an airplane. When they get a full prison jail, detention center, when it's full, they pull up an airplane, they load them up, they take off, and they fly to Mexico. It doesn't matter where the people are from. Okay, this is something Americans don't know. I accidentally came across this kind of information and met some of these people. So they're in southern Mexico there. How do they get back to Honduras, Salvador, Guatemala? These are, that's what these places look like, but you can visit and take it.
How often does this plane pull up and transport people to Mexico?
When it's full.
But how often does that happen? Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Okay, so but you're talking specifically about a plane pulling up.
I don't know
Okay,
that at
okay,
all.
okay.
But, I know that these places are filling
And
up.
those are the kinds of things that we